I bid you welcome to the year 2020. The world is reaching a tipping point. The systems and structures that have defined our societies for generations are breaking down before our eyes. We can no longer hold on to what used to give us a sense of safety and belonging. The reality we took for granted is collapsing in on itself, and therefore we need to make very important decisions how to proceed from here. All throughout the world there is chaos, and out of that chaos will emerge a new order. Yet the question is, did this chaos emerge randomly, or has a lot of it been staged in order to mislead the public? While it did seem inevitable that our systems were bound to collapse at one point or another, there are many reasons to assume that the current events have been deliberately orchestrated for very disturbing purposes. What we're witnessing today is a truly malicious act of oppression, a worldwide coup, if you will. This so-called crisis is nothing but an artificial construct designed for one purpose only, which is to usher in a new world order. It has been cunningly designed to rob us of our fundamental freedoms and convert us into track and traceable assets inside a digital control grid run by the technocratic elite. All of this will be played out under the guise of the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is nothing but a marketing strategy to sugarcoat the underlying, much more disturbing transhumanist agenda. A plan to modify the very fabric of our humanity. A plan to turn us into cyborgs. What the current events reveal is that the rights and liberties we have long taken for granted were only a cover-up to conceal the degree to which we have long been enslaved by the system. The system has always existed to serve the ones in power. Whether it's capitalism, socialism, or communism, eventually all political systems are designed to keep the masses under control while the powers that be can continue to exploit them. From the top down, governance is carried out to set the masses up against each other. This strategy of divide and conquer is as old as politics and war, and it's being used as much today as it has been in ancient times. Sadly, the masses are usually completely unaware of this. Instead, they see it as their obvious duty to obey external authority, as well as to compete with or to exert social pressure on their fellow man. And that is how the masses themselves actually ensure that the system is being perpetuated. This is the game of our three-dimensional reality, which has been played out for millennia. We are born into a machine, and at birth we are automatically baptized to become cogs inside the machine. Our time and energy are the fuel that keeps the machine running, and our collective devotion to its system ensures its maintenance. Quite literally, our birth certificate, which our parents were forced to register within a few days after we were born, in fact serves as a bond. Very few people are aware that our government is a corporation and that our social security number represents a trust on the stock market that the state uses to cover the national debt, which it owes to private central bankers. In fact, the entire system in which we live is perpetuated by a debt-based monetary system, which enables a handful of people to create money out of thin air and lend it out to governments, businesses, and citizens who are forced to pay back those loans plus interest. From the point of view of these bankers and the rest of the elitists that are pulling the strings behind the scenes, we are not free. We have never been free, and as far as they're concerned, we will never be free. All we'll ever be to them is cattle, livestock. Basically, they see us as their possession, and so they will do with us whatever seems fit to their own private interests. They make sure that from an early age we are being programmed to believe that there is no alternative but the machine in which we've been inserted from birth. The machine is the only possible reality, and our compliance to its rules and regulations and our investment in its industries and markets ensure our chances of survival. In this manner, we are hardwired to cling to the systems and structures that have been imposed upon us from the top down. They have been carefully programming our minds through their media and entertainment, their education, their political, monetary, and legal systems, their science and religions, and countless other tools of propaganda. However, the time of clinging to those systems is now coming to an end. The machine has derailed. All of its dark and hidden secrets are now becoming exposed. They cannot be suppressed for much longer. More and more people are starting to wake up and are beginning to see what is really going on behind the scenes. Their unconscious submission to the system was like a slumber state or hypnosis that was passed down through the generations. But now, there are so many bizarre and irrational events taking place. So much disruption of the system has been put into motion. It causes more and more people to awaken from their slumber state, and for the first time, they are opening up their eyes to see the truth. And what do they see? That they're being played with, manipulated, and controlled in order to serve a system that was never designed to serve them. Instead, it is kept in place for the purpose of further enriching a few at the expense of the many. The relatively small group of elitists at the top of the pyramid is so far removed from society, they haven't a clue or have lost sense of what it actually means to really be human. And that is the crux. The human being who is still in touch with his soul is confronted with the motives of those who have lost the connection to their soul entirely, yet have gained tremendous socio-political power despite of it. And that is how the nature of the machine is being revealed. For the machine has in reality never served us human beings to begin with. It has only served itself. It has never nurtured the soul, only the ego. It has never operated out of love, only out of fear. And its devoted architects and stewards are really not serving our best interests. First, they set up monopolies in order to exploit us and make us dependent on their products, funneling as much profit as they possibly can into their piggy banks. Then once they've reached the multi-billionaire status, all of a sudden they make a 180-degree turn and start calling themselves philanthropists, pretending to offer up their billions as charity for the betterment of society and the restoration of the planet. They make it seem as if they're altruistically donating money to charity, but what they're really after is always more revenue and more political power. It is quite natural that when people awaken to this truth, many will get the impulse to turn against the machine. Yet this negative energy can in turn be tapped into by the machine and be used to further strengthen its power and control. It seems natural to revolt and protest, yet our true power lies elsewhere. Namely, in realizing that we have awoken inside a dream, and that this dream consists of many more layers or dimensions. Our awakening from the system simultaneously represents our initiation into a higher order of consciousness, from whence we will obtain a completely new perspective on reality. This can be compared to a psychedelic trip, an experience in which also the foundations of our everyday reality break down and a transformed reality makes its appearance. Times of crisis are an excellent opportunity to receive revelations of another reality. In fact, the word crisis is synonymous to emergency, which stems from the word emergence, the process of becoming visible after being concealed. In other words, in times of intense difficulty or danger, something is being revealed about reality which was previously hidden. Likewise, the word apocalypse comes from the old Greek word apokalypsis, which also means to uncover or reveal. Again, this can be likened to a psychedelic trip, in which often periods of inner turmoil and crisis are followed up by beautiful and blissful episodes full of insight and inspiration. That is not to say that psychedelics are the only means of reaching these transcendental states. Yet they're special in that they can induce very disrupt alterations of consciousness, which can literally turn our world upside down in a matter of seconds. Those at the top of the global power structure are very well aware of the importance of crisis in order to keep the world under control. It is no surprise that the Freemasons, whose symbolism can be found all over the dollar bill, abide by the motto, "Order from Chaos." The powers that be have known for ages that a fundamental change to society can most easily and swiftly be established through crisis and chaos. That's why they are known for creating or exploiting a problem and then blaming it on an outside cause. The people then react by demanding the government to protect them and to help solve the problem. So then the government can offer a solution that was planned by them long before the crisis occurred. The outcome is that the rights and liberties of the people are exchanged for the illusion of protection and safety. Throughout the ages, most of the populace has fallen for this tactic. However, in today's day and age, given the tremendous amount of information we still have at our disposal, those who take the time and energy to inform themselves rather than foolishly following the mainstream media cannot be fooled that easily anymore. Meanwhile, the powers that be are trying very hard to censor every bit of information that does not fit their narrative and cancel every person who doesn't agree with their ideologies. Although we are still a minority, these times of crisis are helping more and more people awaken from the false fiction of our prescribed reality, faster and faster. Yet the burning question then becomes, how do we proceed from here? Do we choose to resist and start fighting the machine? Or do we surrender to the experience and trust that the light of truth will ultimately prevail? Again, we can take lesson from the psychedelic experience, in which the importance of letting go and surrendering to the situation cannot be overstated. As long as our ordinary life was allowed to carry on and the old order was perpetuated, there was much less chance for us to break out of the repetition of our everyday lives and allow ourselves to receive revelations about the true nature of reality. Therefore, normal life was not particularly conducive for our soul's journey. The soul was made to transcend. It lives in eternity. Birth and death are only transitions from one form to another. The soul was made to have as much experiences and to learn as many possible lessons within the physical domain of duality, so that we can continue to evolve along the upward spiral of our cosmic evolution. Unfortunately, human beings on Earth are purposefully being distracted from their soul and kept addicted to systems and structures, beliefs and opinions, consumer products and drugs, personal status, material wealth, and many more things in order to serve a machine that has been designed to harvest their energy and to keep them from realizing their true nature. That is the reason why every crisis in reality can be a blessing in disguise, because it disrupts the former system and suddenly thrusts us out of everyday life and into a process of discovery and transformation. In other words, it gives us the opportunity to unplug from the machine and reconnect to the eternal realm of the soul. For it is the soul who incarnates on Earth and is granted the opportunity to raise its frequency and ascend to a higher octave of its cosmic evolution. In essence, that's why we come here, because physical life on Earth allows us to evolve our consciousness. Yet conversely, there are many who come here and actually get separated from their essence. They essentially sell their soul, their energy, to the machine, and that's how they fall into a downward spiral of devolution, deeper and deeper into the lower planes of existence. Paradoxically, that's how the majority of the elite in this world have managed to claim their position, by disconnecting from their soul and instead worshipping an artificial construct, a deity if you will, which sole purpose is to keep the human population enslaved to their material existence, oblivious to the grandeur of their eternal reality. Those who cling to their material existence inevitably become disconnected from their soul, and instead become infected with the insatiable cravings of the ego. While those who decide to let go and surrender grant their soul permission to guide them out of bondage and towards freedom from all attachments. The effect is that we literally start vibrating at a different frequency than the masses. The more we let go and surrender our attachment to this earthly plane, the more we raise our vibration. And the higher our vibration becomes, the more dormant aspects of our consciousness begin to reawaken within us. Consequently, we start to remember that this 3D world we live in is merely a phase of an eternal process in which many, many higher spheres of existence await us. Yet we also begin to realize that it can go both ways. Most people have bought into the conviction that they only live once, and that therefore their existence is essentially meaningless. This is how they keep themselves locked inside a lower frequency, which keeps them under the dominion of the dark forces that drive the global power structure on this planet. By putting blind faith in external authorities, we have conditioned ourselves to live powerless lives and to behave in accordance with a prescribed reality, rather than allowing our soul to guide us towards our own personal revelations about the true nature of reality. The more our consciousness becomes entrained to the machine, the more we lose our innate connection to our essence. Instead, we become accustomed to wearing a mask in order to please the outside world. To the many who have been hiding behind masks all their lives and have consequently become so far removed from their essence, taking off their masks would feel like dying, because it would mean the end of their conceptualized identity. That's why they will defend the system with all their might, so they won't have to take off their mask and face their true identity. Those who are still in their slumber state have no recollection of their true identity. To them, taking off their mask would seem to render them obsolete within society, and they fear that in effect, the system will reject and discard them. That's why it's not a very wise idea to try and awaken someone who still desires to remain asleep. As they say, it is better to let sleeping dogs lie. For if you do try to wake them up, they will surely attack you, no matter how sincere your intentions are. We have all been granted free will. That is the primary rule of this reality. It is only by virtue of our own deliberate intent that we may ascend along the upward spiral and have our true identity be revealed to us. We cannot decide for anybody else if they are ready to awaken to the true nature of reality. Our true identity will be revealed to us as soon as we are prepared to take off our masks. The first thing that will then immediately begin to dawn upon us is that death is not the end. For eternity, we are given the opportunity to awaken from the dream spell of separation. In the end, every last one of us will have to come to their senses and finally take off their masks in order to reunite with their essence. And from there on, we will continue our path along the upward spiral with one sole purpose, which is to help others who are ready, willing, and able to awaken to their true nature as well. For that matter, once we have awoken to the truth, we cannot simply withdraw from the world and hang around in our spiritual bubbles. On the contrary, once we have chosen to wake up to the truth will be able to set us free, but only if we choose to extend it. In other words, we need to take off our muzzles and speak out our truth. We must rise above our fear of the consequences of speaking out. We cannot serve two masters, therefore we must choose. Will we stay enslaved to the machine on earth and thus choose to live in fear? Or will we choose love and live our lives in service of the source from whence we came forth? The technocratic elite is convinced that they're on the verge of creating something that is superhuman. They're expecting something entirely unprecedented to be on the brink of emerging from their laboratories. Something that has been instigated by their own scientific endeavors, but which will soon begin to take on a life of its own, demonstrating behavior that can no longer be accurately predicted by them. Consequently, these elitists believe that if we don't choose to merge with the machine, human beings will soon become obsolete. This rapid scientific development simultaneously triggers an acceleration in our consciousness. More and more people in the last decade have begun to realize that some kind of major shift is happening in the world today. Simultaneously, the excessive amount of stress that the system puts on them causes them to burn out. These burnouts then often serve as a catalyst for their awakening to a higher consciousness. In the process of healing from their burnout, they begin to realize something about reality that will prepare them for the very disruptive times that have already begun to unfold, and for the accompanying new world order that the ruling class will try to force upon them. When we awaken to the true nature of reality, we realize that a machine can never replace a human being, no matter how intelligent it becomes. Our human soul or spirit is non-physical. In fact, this entire material world, in essence, is really an illusion. Quantum physics, the most successful branch of modern science, actually reveals that the atoms of which all matter is comprised consist for more than 99.99999% of empty space. What we perceive as real, solid, and physical things are actually waves of probability. Nothing is set in stone, as they say. Everything is constantly flickering in and out of existence. When we are not observing a particular something, all the particles of which it is comprised exist in superposition, meaning that they are in all possible locations simultaneously. Only when we observe something will the probability waves collapse into actual measurable particles, and will we sense a seemingly solid and physical three-dimensional reality. The more you study the true inner workings of physical matter, the more you begin to realize that it's actually more accurate to refer to this world as a virtual rather than a physical reality. For the word virtual literally means not existing as such, but made to appear to do so. In fact, the deeper you dive into the subject, the more you begin to realize that our everyday waking reality is not so different from the one we experience at night when we're asleep and dreaming. When we remember a dream, we accept that it happened inside our consciousness. But as soon as we resume our waking reality, we automatically assume that reality is now completely external from us and that we are inside of it, rather than it being inside of us. This appears to make sense because we perceive our consciousness as residing inside our brain, and everything that our 5 physical senses pick up suggests that the rest of the world is taking place outside of our consciousness. Yet we still haven't managed to actually locate the origin of consciousness inside the brain. What we do know is that everything that our senses perceive are actually vibrations. Even the physical matter we touch is comprised of atoms, which are also vibratory in nature. On top of that, there are many accounts of transcendent experiences, such as lucid and precognitive dreaming, near-death experiences, astral projection, and remote viewing, all of which reveal that we can transport our consciousness without requiring a physical vessel to travel with. In countless cases, evidence has been gathered which prove that a person who had any one of these transcendent experiences actually traveled somewhere apart from his body and collected data that could be verified by others who were physically present at the location where his consciousness had gone. Does that mean that our brain can have extraordinary prophetic properties? Or does it actually imply that everything we experience is really a simulation of our consciousness to begin with? In any case, the latter seems to be far more plausible and scientifically verifiable. One thing is certain: most people in this world give far too much credit to materialism. And that's actually how they are being manipulated and kept under control. For if you only believe in a material reality and refuse to accept any sort of spiritual, non-physical reality, then you are extremely vulnerable to outside influences and perceived physical threats. How radically different the world would be if humans would accept that everything we experience in the physical world is really a simulation of our consciousness. For that would mean that all is in fact one. Once we realize that our 3D reality is a projection of our consciousness, that would automatically mean the end of the dream spell of separation. For if we'd all accept that we are individuated holographic extensions of the same source, that we were created in its image and therefore we are omnipresent and omnipotent, then nothing in this world could keep us bound to it for much longer. Meanwhile, the elitists of this world want to create a machine in their own image, yet the image they have of themselves is flawed. They want to somehow merge with their machine because they fear that otherwise the machine will render them obsolete. yet they have completely forgotten their soul's journey. The only reality they understand is materialistic. They're oblivious to the higher planes of existence because those planes cannot be accessed as long as they invest all their attention strictly on the physical domain. That's why we must unwind from their system and turn our lives over to our soul's purpose. Otherwise, we will also remain stuck in their frequency bandwidth. If we bring forth that which is within us, it will heal us. But if we do not bring forth that which is within us, it will destroy us. For its power is so great, it cannot be withheld from the world for very long without serious detrimental effects. All sickness derives from refusing to extend our natural gifts. If we try to resist that which is within us, we will surely get sick, either physically or mentally or both. It will eat us up from the inside, because once the light of truth has begun to dawn upon us, its powers are too great to be suppressed and kept inside. That's why we must open up and reveal our true identity to the world. It is the only way forward. It is our only chance of healing our wounds and ascending to the next stage of our cosmic evolution. And that is the true purpose of why we are here. Not to be slaves, but instead to set ourselves free.